All right, so this is our first Tessco Talk Live here at CTIA at the Tessco booth. I'm Bill Moten, and I'm the host of Tessco Talk, so now you get to see what I look like. That's why I have the face for a podcast. So what we're going to do is something a little different here. My guest today is Scott McClure. Scott McClure is the director of our solutions development team, and Scott has the machine-to-machine and our wireless backhaul solutions. So Scott is, I would say, one of the experts in the industry when it comes to backhaul and broadband. And this is going to be really exciting because this is our second day here at the show. And I'm really interested to see what Scott thinks about what he's seeing and what's really going on here. So one of the things, Scott, I've noticed is since I've been walking around the show, there's a lot of broadband manufacturers out there, and we have some here in our booth, like Ericsson has their solution here, but there's a lot of other ones out there. What's going on? What's driving all this broadband activity?
Well, there really is a lot of players in the market right now. The perception in the industry that where wireless backhaul is only an option when there's not any wireline connectivity has really been changed. People view wireless backhaul as a real option now, not just in the carrier space, but in the enterprise space as well. So that has really come out of advancements in security and capability and reliability, because those were the big objections to using wireless for backhaul. So with all these options in the market now, it truly is a buyer's market. There's pretty much product that can meet any application. You just have to know the questions to ask, what to look for, and make the right match for a particular application. And that becomes difficult the more options you have out there. It's not always easy to pull one size fits all off the shelf and put it into your network and hope for the best. So it takes a degree of expertise to weed through all the product choices and figure out what's the right fit. Not just capability-wise and performance-wise, but price and budget-wise as well. So all those factors have to be considered.
So one of the things that I've noticed in the past is a lot of the wireless carriers in like small cell for backhaul, they didn't want to do wireless backhaul. They prefer fiber. But are you seeing a change now where people are now going to be trusting wireless backhaul and not necessarily depend on a fiber or a piece of copper?
Absolutely. I think they realize that only about 30% of the small cell accessible sites are going to have access to fiber. And if fiber is readily available and it's right there and it's economical, it is a good solution, and they'll probably use that.
Yeah.
But for those other 70% of the sites, they have to find an alternate. And it becomes more and more difficult as they operate at street level. The challenges of a changing and dynamic environment really affect that significantly. Yeah. So the products have evolved. They've targeted that market specifically. And we've seen a lot of gains that can be used in various applications across the whole spectrum.
So I know one of the big things about obviously putting up a wireless point-to-point link to cover the fiber is the speed at which you can do it. You don't need a trench. You don't need to get permission from the beautification committee of the township or anything.
Right, it can be integrated right on the pole with the small cell, and you're up and running in a matter of hours, not months.
So from all that's going on here, what do you see as the most exciting trend in the wireless backhaul piece?
In a word, speed. Speed, speed, speed. It's amazing the advancements we've seen in the last couple years in terms of capacity that these products can operate under. We were challenged to get to a gigabyte. It took the industry almost 12 years to get to that point from a microwave perspective. And now we hear Ericsson, who's in our booth, is announcing that they're going to start delivering a 5 gigabyte per second radio in December. And that truly is amazing when you think about the kind of capacity advancements that have been made in the same spectrum. So it's spectrum efficiency. These radios have gotten so much more sophisticated, and along with the reliability has come the speed.
Okay.
They better utilize the spectrum that they're operating under.
So speed is definitely a big impact, and that's everything here is about getting faster, right? What else are you seeing out there? You mentioned security too. Is that something that's really happening?
Yeah, security's gotten to the point where it's right in line with landline networks. Advanced encryption algorithms and other methods to prevent any type of data security or breach are really at the forefront. When you're operating a carrier network, but even more so in the enterprise world where you're a utility or a public safety environment where a breach of security could, effectively just knock down a whole town from their power, or it could be a threat for terrorism, those type of things. So it's something that's taken very, very seriously. And most of the manufacturers today offer some different degree of security that can be either add-on or something that they can purchase with the radio right off the bat.
Okay. So I know there's been a lot of talk about spectrum. Now, typically it's spectrum in the carrier class, and there's some new spectrum being auctioned off. How does spectrum play a role in the wireless backhaul?
Spectrum is king. It's one of those situations where the increasing popularity of the use of backhaul puts a demand on a finite resource. Spectrum's like land. They're not making any more of it. So you have to better utilize it, but we're also seeing bands open up. We're starting to see more customers are using 24 and 28 and 32 gigahertz. We've seen an enhanced utilization of millimeter wave that's almost become mainstream. It's shorter distance, but it works well and you mitigate interference. You don't have to worry about that. So the enhancement and the more capabilities from the manufacturers in terms of the variation have enhanced it beyond the typical 2.4.5.8 in the unlicensed space, and beyond the normal 6 gigahertz, 11 gigahertz, 18 and 23 in the microwave space. They're all still used widely, but these other bands are starting to take hold for different applications.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Spectrum is it is like land. I think I heard the FCC chairman say the same thing at the keynote.
Did he?
You can't make any more of it.
Right.
It's there.
Yeah.
So so with all these advancements, right? We got security advancements. We got speed advancements, making better use of the spectrum, right? Is this driving up the cost? Is it still cost effective? Is it better? What?
It's actually quite the opposite. Again, it's a buyer's market, and the costs have been driven down significantly over the last few years. The cost per megabyte of throughput has decreased by over 60% in the last 4 years alone. So as capacities go up and capabilities go up, the prices actually drop significantly. It's a function of competition. There's more players in the market right now. There's more demand. Volume's driving up the volume production is driving down production costs. So it's one of those situations where the customers are benefiting. Again, it's a buyer's market. So
you said we've been at 1 gig, right? And now you're saying we've got 5 gig. What's next? What do you see coming?
I talked to a manufacturer this morning, actually, that told me they would have 10 gigabytes by mid to late next year. So again, it's that
mid to late next
exponential increases in speed. If we're just announcing 5 for the first time, coming out in December, by third quarter next year to have a doubling of that again to 10, it's pretty amazing. Significant increases in spectrum availability or spectrum efficiency, I should say, that are going to drive those.
So if we get up to the 5 gig now, 10 gig next year, and who knows what, 20 gig, how do you see this playing a role in the whole 5G world, where basically there's going to be billions and billions of sensors in the Internet of Things and machine to machine? I mean, this has to be a critical link to connect all those devices.
It definitely will be. You'll have different types of links that feed off a different access, but at some point they got to get aggregated.
Yeah.
And where that aggregation points are, that's going to be where your highest bandwidth requirements are going to be. So think hub and spoke with connections between the hubs, and you're looking at some serious capacity and speeds that you got to reach. Carriers are already saying we're going to need 10 gig. We're going to need products that can handle 10 gig. So the industry is driving towards that, and the development, the engineers, and there's a lot of smart people in this business, and they've been able to figure out those advanced algorithms and capabilities that we only dreamed of 3 years ago. I would have never envisioned we could reach those speeds by 2016.
So we've talked a lot about, lease line replacement, connecting even SCADA type devices. What do you see as that next killer application for broadband?
Really, it's the Internet of Things. I mean, we're going to connect so many devices at such a low cost. We have to have low cost backhaul. As the lower bandwidth applications get out there on a mass scale, the price points are going to drop. So you have to aggregate that data at some point. Even though it's a lot of little bits of data, those aggregation points are still going to need capacity. So we have to find a way to connect that back to the internet at some point, because you can't handle the recurring costs of fiber, and some of those become cost prohibitive on an ongoing basis. When you're talking about access to a device that runs between $2 and $5 a month, the carrier's got to be able to make money. The service provider's got to be able to make money, which means their whole chain of connectivity has to be cost effective and has to work within that model.
So you think we'll see the adoption of wireless backhaul finally for small cells? Because we've been talking about that for a while.
If the small cells are there, the technology for the backhaul is there. Okay. The two biggest advancements we've seen for that are interference mitigation and non-line of sight capabilities.
And setup too, right? It's got to be easy and quick to set up.
Correct. And ironically, the same technology is driving both of those enhancements. It's the more powerful chipsets, and it's the use of phased array antennas, which is basically an antenna with a lot of little point-to-point connectivity in it. And the chip is used to analyze vast amounts of data at incredible speeds and make adjustments on the fly real time in milliseconds. What's the best path to reach the other end? What's the best path to avoid interference? How do I use multiple paths to go around objects and still provide reliable connectivity?
And beam that energy to where it's sensing the user, right?
Exactly.
That's the whole
array.
Adapt.
You got to be flexible. These are living networks now, and they have to work within the frame of users. Users are not always going to be in the same spot doing the same thing all the time.
And you're not always going to have that clearer shot, because something's going to get in front of it eventually.
Right. Trucks drive by on the highway. Buildings get built. Sprint, for example, is using a product from a company called Fastback that we started selling about 6 months ago in Lower Manhattan in the unlicensed band. They have about 200 of those links up in Manhattan, driving bandwidth that's reliable without dropping packets at street level. I mean, that's amazing to me when you think about one of the hardest RF environments in the world with a tier 1 carrier operating in unlicensed spectrum. I mean, I never would have believed that until I saw it. So
very cool. So the show, what do you think? Everything
so far so good. Yeah. a lot of interesting stuff to look at and play with and try to digest and see how it's going to impact the market going forward. It's interesting times in our business. It just seems to roll on at increasing speed, so makes it fun.
Yeah, I agree. Any questions from the audience? Anybody? No?
Saul?
All right. Well, that's it. You got anything else you'd like to add?
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me today. It's been great. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Well, I don't have to end this Tessco talk with come see us at CTIA because we're here. But yep, thanks for being the first guest on our first Tessco Talk Live. Yep. Look forward to doing some more Tessco Talk moving into the next few months. So stay tuned for those. And remember, Tessco makes wireless work. Bye-bye.